Throughout history, women have been at the forefront of change. Women are leaders, artists, thinkers, inventors, revolutionaries. Women have pushed boundaries and answered the call of duty. From voting rights to civil rights, women have been there, standing up, making a difference, challenging our world to be better and do better. When Rose Blumkin founded Nebraska Furniture Mart in 1937, she challenged the world. Sell cheap and tell the truth wasn't just her motto. It was a challenge to businesses everywhere to put the customers and community first and make integrity a foundation of your business. And as we celebrate Women's History Month, we think about Mrs. B's advice. Set your goals high and don't really have what you would call a top. You should go for the heavens. Because women's history isn't only about where women have been, it's about everything women choose to be.
Okay, I think we are ready to go. People are trickling in. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us virtually and everyone who's here in person. This is so exciting to look at all these faces and get everyone together. My name's Olivia Harlan Dekker. I'll be moderating this amazing panel of women. I just want to quickly introduce everyone. I'll start from the outside. We have Dia Wall. She's an anchor reporter with KSHB, 41 Action News. I know you've seen her on TV. And then we have Hannah Hoffman right to my left. She's the Director of Operations for Sandlot & Co. It's a company she runs with her husband. We'll have more on that later, I'm sure. And then Robyn Messerly is the Director of Information Technology of Nebraska Furniture Mart. She's in from Omaha, so it's so exciting to finally get everyone here on a stage. We have so much to talk about for International Women's Day. And for everyone who purchased a ticket, everyone who participated with us virtually, all the proceeds are going to UMKC's Empowerment Program. And for more on that, I want to bring in Dr. Johanna Nielsen to talk a little bit with us. If you don't mind coming up. Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you so much. And I think we'll put you right in the middle if that's okay. Okay. Yes, ma'am. If you want to tell us a little bit about what the Empowerment Program does, who it's raising money for.
Yeah. Can I take off my mask? Is that okay?
Sure.
It's easier to talk. So I'm so honored to be here and so grateful and surprised when I was called by Nebraska Furniture Mart to be the program that to get the proceeds from this event. We're a really small program, not well known unless you work with immigrants and refugees in Kansas City area. And I'm Johanna Nielsen. I'm a faculty member at University of Missouri, Kansas City, and I direct the Empowerment Program, which is a program for refugee and immigrant women. So Rose Blumkin, Mrs. B, like we all know, was an immigrant herself. If you listen to her story, if you read about her story, it was an intense story from coming from Russia to the United States without knowing the language, without knowing the culture, with not having much support. She had to leave her husband for a while and her safety, but she came here to Nebraska and started the Nebraska Furniture Mart. Her story is unique, and the success she had, and the stamina she had, and the powerfulness she sort of lived her life by. But it also mirrors a lot of our refugee and immigrant women in Kansas City. They all comes with courage and strength to start a new life, and they come like Mrs. B to provide a better life for themselves, their family, and their children, and sort of help the next generation of immigrants. So today there's a crisis worldwide. We have more refugees and more immigrants and people seeking asylum than we ever had. Most people end up living in the neighboring countries in refugee camps. You may be seeing pictures that thousands of people in small tents that can live there for 30 years. So refugees dream of being resettled and come to another country and have the opportunity to start a new life. But very few countries, only 27 countries in 2018 accepted to take refugees. And refugees is a settlements that go through United Nations. The United States is one of those countries, and Kansas City over the years varies a little bit, but tends to replace 400 refugees a year. So some of those refugees come and they thrive and they're successful, and other ones comes with a lot of trauma in their past. They struggle socially or mentally. They have a hard time adjusting to a new culture, hard time learning a new language, finding a job, understanding the school system, helping the kids through the school system. So our program was created by refugee women and immigrant women themselves to provide better services for refugee women. So we serve via counseling, case management, support. We have workshops. We provide transportation and free interpretation. We provide counseling via UMKC, so graduate students get trained in providing services to a really diverse clientele. And we have a staff of refugee immigrant women themselves, and we have a couple of them here today that work with their communities, with their own communities, and then support services for those women to get their needs met and the services they deserve. So this, I think that what makes our program successful is our staff and their ability to know their communities and work within their communities. So we serve about 200 women a year and their families. And they come from all over the world: Somalia, Sudan, Afghanistan, Burma, Congo, Russia, Iraq, Vietnam, etc., etc. So we are so honored and grateful to be honored by Nebraska Furniture Mart and Mrs. B, and we think she would really celebrate us and the work we do and the staff we have and the client we serve in her own experience of being an immigrant. So she, Mrs. B, was incredibly important. She created this successful company, and so are most of our immigrant women. They provide so much resources to our community, so much strength, and so much creativity to us. So we're honored. Thank you so much for having us and supporting us.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. It's a very worthy cause, and it's so great to look at all of you who we're all supporting it, and something we can all get behind, and think of the feelings that must be going through someone's head entering our country and finding their way. And I think that actually ties in pretty nicely to our International Women's Day and Month conversation of finding your way. And even before we began filming, us four women were sitting and talking about our stories, our journeys, our families. And it seems like the first question I want to ask all three of you to answer separately is, what would you tell your younger self? As we're all continuing to find our way at different stages in our lives, what would you tell your younger self? Let's start with Hannah.
Yeah, so that's a great question, because there's probably a ton of stuff I would tell my younger self. But I think the most important thing is that there is nothing more valuable than finding friends early on who are going to cheer you on and support you, and not view like your personal successes as a threat to themselves, right? And if like you're failing, to also find a friend who is going to like push you, encourage you. But then on the flip side of that, you have to be that friend too, right? So like if you want to find people who are empowering you and encouraging you from like a young age, and it goes like up with you through, I mean, into adulthood, like those are the friends that are going to stick around. So I think that's community over, competition kind of a deal.
Like you, Hannah, there's so many things I've learned along the way in my journey, and a lot of things I would tell my younger self. But I think probably two things would be confident and be kind. I think confidence takes you a long way in your career and in your personal life as well. I think it's allowed me to be able to say no to things that aren't in alignment with my priorities or my values. It's allowed me to feel okay to ask for help and know that I can't do everything by myself. And it's also allowed me to dream big and pursue my dreams fiercely. So I think confidence gives you courage, and it's really, really important both personally and professionally. And then being kind. People remember you for how you made them feel. And I mean, who doesn't like to give kindness and receive it in return? And, that's something that my parents always taught me, was treat others how you want to be treated yourself. So it just makes the world a better place.
There are a lot of things. I have to echo that. But I think if there was one thing I would tell my younger self, it would be stick with it. Hard work pays off in the end. My mom used to always say, cream always rises to the top. And I believe that to this day, right? And so in a world or an atmosphere or a job climate or a social environment where you feel like the good guy is not winning or the good woman is not winning, stick with it and do things the right way. Every step of the way in my career, I can point to someone being an advocate for me, opening a door for me, interceding on my behalf, not because I was necessarily the best broadcaster or the best journalist, but because I was the best person. And so I think that it is so important to stay the course, always work like somebody is watching, because whether you know it or not, they are, and stick with it. You're gonna like who you turn out to be in the end.
Dee, I want to stick with you there. We both work in television, and we were saying earlier, it's a very paranoid business. It's a very competitive business. I have found that I've really benefited from having female mentors. Who were some of yours, and what did they tell you?
Man, so I can point to one specific, which I really normally don't like to do this, but Clarice Tinsley has been the evening anchor at the Fox station in Dallas my entire life. And I remember seeing her on television, and watching her deliver the news was like drinking hot chocolate, right? She made you feel wrapped up and warm and like you just wanted to settle in. And to this day, she is still someone that I look up to who has such a command of journalism and how to communicate with people. And I think her advice was always to be authentic, stay true to yourself, and find your own voice. I think oftentimes we look at people we admire or people who we feel like are a little bit further along than we are, and we say, well, what's wrong with me? I need to do what they're doing. No, you got to chart your own course. You have to be your own person. And so I think that that was the biggest advice and the best advice I got. Find my own voice and then execute it from there.
I like that advice a lot. I think that applies to every industry. And Robyn, that leads me to your industry, IT field, so male dominant. How did you even forge that path? How did this come about?
So my path was actually pretty simple compared to a lot of people that aren't really sure what they want to do. I took a programming class my junior year in high school, and it just resonated with me. And I liked being able to solve business problems with, writing code. So I went to college for it, and I was a developer out of college for about 9.5 years before I started in the management track in IT. But I still love it today. Never looked back. So it was just one little course that I took in high school that got me here today.
I love that story. But with Nebraska Furniture Mart, how many years? 19 years?
19 years,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And I know this company is so much more than a store. It's so much more than a company. It's a whole philosophy. It's very much empowering, uplifting, especially of women with a female founder. What about the principles and character of Nebraska Furniture Mart has kept you here 19 years?
I think there's a lot of things, but our culture and our people, I think, are really what, it makes me proud to come to work every day. I love my NFM family. We talk about improving people's lifestyles, and we really do. It's very important to us. And we take care of each other. We take care of our customers. But we also have, like a women lead program. So we've been doing this for about 5 years, really focusing on developing women leadership and women talent. And, that makes me proud too. So it's just a great culture, a lot of tenure in our company. Me being there 19 years is actually relatively short compared to hundreds and hundreds of other people that have been there for decades.
That's impressive. Now, Hannah, getting to your story and your company, and we were also talking before, she works with her husband. I think there's a lot to unpack there, but
Amen.
Tell us a little bit about what your company does, what it's like working with your husband, and you all own the company as well.
Yes, so it's always funny when I say this because I think what everyone's initial response is like, how do you work with your husband? And it took me 3 years of convincing that it's a good idea to do it. Because I was convinced it would go one of two ways. Either we would absolutely want to kill each other or it would be great. And so it turns out it's a little bit of both. But we own Sandlot & Co., which is a traditional and digital marketing agency here in Kansas City, and we have clients up and down the Midwest, a couple in the South. But yeah, that's what we do, and it works really well for the most part. It's kind of funny, a couple of things that I did not anticipate being hard when you work with your spouse is like, as the wife, sometimes your job merit seems like you earned it because you're the spouse. And so I have a perfect example of this actually. We met a client, right, and they did not know that he and I were married. And so whenever we first met, he called me by my name, this client did, and all these things. And then once he realized we were married, I became Mrs. Collin. And I was like, what in the world? Like, I'm not the Mrs., you know. But that's probably just a weird hurdle of like having to make sure that I have to work a little extra hard to show that like I'm here also because I'm good at my job and not just because I'm married to Colin, which is great, but there's more to it than that. So yeah, it never turns off, I will say that. You know, you fall asleep talking about work, but it's good. We enjoy it.
I think that's true for all four of us. I think we would feel that way to a certain extent of finding your place as a woman, as a professional, and every once in a while getting the offhand comment of whatever it is. I think everyone has experienced at some point. For myself, working in sports, I know I have felt at certain times that you don't feel like you belong in the room. And that's always my mantra, especially to younger women getting in sports, TV, any industry, is you belong in the room, but prove it with your work ethic, with what you know, with your prep. But Dia, with you on the news angle especially, and in your industry, you travel a lot. You spent years in Tyler, Texas, and you know, you very much climbing the ladder, you move a lot. So how do you plan your marriage, your family? You have 2 little ones now. How do you plan around that as a mom?
So I'm going to bust a few myths. You can't plan everything, okay? Let me just put that out there. You can't plan everything. And I think our generation coming up, yes, I'm a millennial, a begrudging one, and I will commit to side parts until the day I die. You can't plan everything, right? I knew the career that I wanted to have. I was working, doing my thing, and then all of a sudden this guy showed up, and I was like, oh, I have to account for him now too, right? But I was honest, and I was focused, and I was transparent, and I said, hey, my contract's up in 10 months, and I'm not staying here. And he was like, well, I'm not staying here either. The thing that he did not tell me at the time was he was pretty stressed about like what he was going to do professionally, how he was going to pivot and shift. My greatest advice on the relationship front, for my women out there who want career and you also want the love life, even though I do want to kill him sometimes too. My biggest advice is get a partner, right? I think sometimes we overvalue the lover part and devalue the partner part, right? So my husband knew if he wanted to be with me, he was gonna have to move. We had to do that. Like, we have to tag team, right? So when we came, I worked my schedule a little bit to accommodate and account for him. And so it almost feels like a give and a take. Nobody is sacrificing everything to be with the other person. And I feel like we have always prioritized our partnership, maybe a little too highly. You know, we gotta have some fun sometimes too, but the partnership takes precedence. So now, I've been here for 6 years at 41 Action News. I love it. Those people are my family. If a kid is sick and he has a busy day, I can call out. I have more PTO than I have if I'm at a new job, you know? And so I think we can't plan everything. Account for the love when it shows up in your life. Make sure that you are looking at the partnership aspect. Is this person gonna get in the boat with you and row? He knows how much I love journalism, how much I value being able to do things like this and interact with the community and all of that. So I think for him, he was willing to sacrifice a little bit for that. And when it comes to his dreams and goals, I'm able to sacrifice a little bit as well. And on the kid front, you have everything you need. That's my greatest advice. I think sometimes as women in particular, we underestimate how strong, how smart, how capable, how prepared, and how ready we are. And so I think my greatest advice to women out there, if you want the career and you want the family and you want the spouse, go get it all. Everything can't be the most important at the same time. So like your priorities ebb and flow. You got little babies, okay, they're gonna be a little more high up on that list. But you can renegotiate, right? How those things fit into your day-to-day, but you can have it all and go out there and get it.
Now, Robyn, you have children and grandchildren. What do you add to what Dia just said?
Well, I think children are the biggest blessings in your life. And like you said, your priorities change as the kids grow. But, the greatest reward of having kids is having grandkids. I have two sweet little guys, and I just cherish them. And, I think my mother set a really good example for what it looks like to be a career woman, but also raise a family. There were 4 of us. And, being able to keep a neat home and put food on the table and be successful in all areas of her life. And so she was, we talked about female mentors. She was probably my biggest, she's my hero. And, we had chores. My kids had chores, we hold them accountable. I think it's really important today to not just give them the easy pass.
Say it.
So it's worked remarkably well for me, and my kids, I'm proud of them. They're also taking away some of those values that were instilled in me as a young one.
And Hannah, as you and your husband are building something together, I mean, talk about rowing the boat. My husband and I, we call it teammates. Like, you're my teammate, and that's our sports metaphor we use for everything. But for you and your husband, you really are teammates and partners. What fears do you have as a couple and as business owners and as a woman really trying to make this work with your husband?
So I think
Not your marriage, with the company.
Sure.
Maybe your marriage too.
Yeah, that's where I think I was going to go with that first, is like, obviously our marriage will come first. But, I think it's, we've been really blessed that our strengths are not the same. And so it's funny because we work in the same office. There's only 8 of us total. But if we don't need to cross paths during the day, we don't have to. So if we need to go in and get our stuff done and work independently like we can, so we're privileged in that as well, because our roles at the company do look different. But at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we're respectful of each other, right? And kind of keeping. Sometimes your marriage can spill over, right, into the workplace, but we've been really good, or at least I think we have, maybe you'll ask my employees, but about kind of keeping the personal and professional separate. And so I really have no complaints. We're learning. I think we're both lifelong learners, and we are teachable. And so if something doesn't work, you pivot and you change it. But yeah, it's going well, knock on wood. So we'll see.
I think that's such a good word, pivot. And Dia, I was curious with you as well. What are your goals in terms of how long you want to work, what hours you want to keep? Do you want to stay in Kansas City? I think in this industry, you very much are, okay, what's next? But I think also as a mom, you're kind of choosing your battles, let's say.
It's so funny. I think when I was young, my goals were this market size, this salary, this job title. Now I just want peace. You know what I'm saying? When I get home at the end of the day, I want peace. I want my husband to feel like he's fulfilled. I want our home to be a home, a place that people want to come, where they feel comfortable, where they feel loved. And I think for me professionally, I want to make change where I'm at. I love Kansas City. I tell people it grew on me like a bad rash. I came thinking I was going to do one contract and peace out. I'll be here 2 or 3 years, do a little something, then I'm on to the next. And I came here as an engaged woman. I am now married, so I'm a wife, I'm a mom. I'm really active and rooted in the community and in our church. And so it's just, I think for me, this is where we are. And the goal setting piece is more about the changes that I want to see and the things I want to impact. So making changes culturally in our community, those are the things I think I now have kind of set my orbit around. And I've been very blessed to grow here. I came here as a morning reporter, and now I'm anchoring the 6 and 10 during the week. And so I've been able to grow where I'm at. That's another thing. For the women out there listening who feel like I have to bounce around, sometimes yes, but sometimes we need to grow where we're planted. I think we can't be so forward-facing that we miss where we are. And to your point, Olivia, kids will do that for you. I agree with Robyn. Having kids was the best thing I ever did my whole life. But kids shift your perspective. And I realized that if I check out and all I'm focused on is the next big job title, I will miss these precious moments with my babies. And so they have really forced me to slow down a little bit and recognize that success doesn't come overnight. Like I look at Robyn, I'm like, 19 years. That's a long time. But I do think about there's some changes and some impacts you can only have with longevity. And in a society now where we want everything like this, I value longevity. You know, in my family, in my professional life, all of that. So like, that's kind of my big rallying cry now is it's great to be the shooting star, but let's talk about the sun that's just been up there doing its thing.
Okay, that I've never heard it put like that. That is so good. I always tell people as well when they ask me my career goals, I say I just want to be around a long time. Like truly, I think especially women feel like at a certain age, you don't look like you should be on TV. And it's so much harder for women aging on TV than men in general. That's a whole nother conversation.
We'll talk offline.
But we'll talk offline. But I think in general, the longevity factor is you don't, the retirement age is when you choose.
Yes.
And ambition mixed with what fits for us. I think when you're a single girl out there grinding, you're like, I want this. I hear my own thoughts when you were saying that. And then it shifts when you do have that partner, that teammate, you want to start your family. And that's what this topic of ambition, I contemplate myself a lot. And I'm curious what ambition means to all three of you and what it looks like and how it's changed. Hannah, do you want to start?
Yeah. Oh man, this one's tough, I feel like. You know, I do think that as I've gotten older, my idea of what ambition is has changed. Because at first you feel like, you know, you have to get this job with this salary and you have to work at it for a long time. But now I feel like as long as I'm like content in what I'm doing and it's fulfilling, I mean, that makes me feel like I'm ambitious because I've done a lot of different things actually. I haven't always done the marketing route. And so it's not always like such a straight path. It's very winding. And so if your center and your goal is the whole time like contentment and fulfillment in what you do, I think that you're going to end up, you know, I don't know, feeling more successful in the long run. So,
Robyn?
Yeah, and I think what I try to tell, you know, women in particular that are just getting started in their careers that are ambitious, it's set your goals really big with no boundaries. Don't be afraid. Set them big and go after them, you know, fiercely. And I think over the years, like you were saying, Dia, your passions change, your ambitions change. And so when I was a young mother, I didn't think about giving back to the community and serving in a capacity like this and being part of a strategic planning board. So it changes over time. So my ambitions change over time. But, you know, I think if you just keep pursuing your dreams passionately, then, you know, that's what ambition is, right?
I think ambition is good. I think sometimes it's shrouded in like this kind of stigma that, oh, you're ambitious, right? I agree, man. Shoot for the moon. And if the consolation prize is the stars, golden, right? Like for me, I always wanted to be a journalist from the time I was itty bitty, teeny tiny. I used to watch 60 Minutes. My mom still has the tapes on VHS that I would like record the shows. And what my career goals look like have changed. What my personal goals look like have changed. But ambition to me means strategically trying to go after what your priorities are of the moment. And don't be afraid to let them shift. Don't be afraid to let them change. I think we're all learning, growing, and evolving. And so ambition for me is good.
Do you think ambition looks different on a woman than a man?
Heck yes. Heck yes. Let's talk about it, right? Because the difference is there's a whole list of words that they'll use for ambitious women that they won't use for men, right? I mean, she's just too strong. What is too strong?
She's bossy.
She's bossy, too opinionated, right? And I think it is incumbent upon women now who are more established to reach back. And I always promised myself that if I ever got to a point where I was considered a person of influence, that I would, and that I would advocate, and that I would help coach and teach. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. Obviously, my mouth has probably gotten me in trouble a couple of times. And I had some really brilliant women and a few men, I'm not going to lie, who came out and helped me learn how to tailor my messaging, right? Taught me how to use my mouth in a way that would benefit me and not harm me, you know? How to get my point across strategically and effectively. And I think that's what we have to do. We have to celebrate those strong women, because I would guarantee Mrs. B was one of them, right?
Yes, she was.
I love hearing that. I think just in general, the thought of, well, be a lady. You should be a lady and be a career woman. Sometimes those don't go together. And I'm curious your thoughts on that. Robyn, if you want to start there.
You know, I think being a woman in IT has been particularly challenging. There's a lot of industries where it's challenging, but oftentimes I am the only woman in the room. When it may be a technical conference or a roundtable or something, it's very, very male dominated. So I think just ensuring that your voice is heard in a professional way, you know, and I found that my male counterparts really respect the female's perspective and intuition, and having that diversity makes us stronger. So I think, you know, the problem in the IT industry in particular is getting women into the industry. I think once we're there, we're very successful, and we have the unique ability to use our interpersonal skills combined with our technical skills. So it makes us very powerful in the industry. But again, we just need more women to get into the industry.
What efforts are being made to help women get into coding, especially?
Into coding?
Yeah, coding, IT, just the whole industry.
Yeah. Well, it's tough because I've been advocating for it in many. I'm part of a planning committee for women in technology in the Heartland, and we go in and we mentor young students, even as early as elementary school. And I think it's really, we have to start relying on the educators and the parents and the grandparents to really stifle that stigma that women shouldn't be in those STEM programs. Because I mean, I feel like I'm so active in the community and trying to encourage it, and it's just not enough. So it has to start at a young age, and we've just got to remove this stigma. You know?
I like that. Well, we are getting some live questions in, and people, please keep them coming because it's going to be fun to look through some of these. The first one is for me about games I cover. I cover college football, NFL, NBA, college basketball, and the first one is getting to work so many high-profile events. What has been your favorite? And I think this actually ties into our greater conversation is my favorite event I've ever covered was doing a Green Bay Packers game on radio with my dad, and we made history as the first father-daughter duo to ever call an NFL game. And on that note, it's, you know, when I got into the industry, I didn't think of history-making things. You feel like, especially, I mean, it's 2021. I'm like, what hasn't been done? Everything's been done. It hasn't. And even one of my coworkers, her name's Lisa Byington. She's a play-by-play announcer. And this week, she's making history as the first female play-by-play announcer to cover the NCAA tournament. When I heard that, I couldn't even believe it. I thought, surely that's been done, but it hasn't. And I think kind of on that note is you don't know what history you're going to break. You don't know what boundaries you're going to push, so that the whole phrase, how can you be it if you can't see it? Yes. So I always want to make it, you know, father-daughters can do this. You know, it doesn't have to be this father-son thing or just kind of gender roles. And but also to that point, I get asked the question all the time of what's it like being a woman in a male-dominated industry. And I always say, I feel like I sit on the shoulders of giants. I feel like it was women 20, 30 years ago who really had to push so that I could grow up and watch women on TV, Pam Oliver on TV. And that was always who I wanted to be. I still do. And so it's that whole idea of you don't know what your battle's going to be. You don't know what your accomplishment's going to be. It's probably even greater than what you set out for originally. So that's my little story. Okay, this next question is for Dia, and I like this. You seem like such a positive person. How do you deal with having to deliver bad news?
Oh boy. Okay, so I am 100% a positive person. I think that old saying, like, you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond to it, rings true a little bit, but I think for me it just comes from my life perspective in general. I love the news. I love journalism, mostly because of the power that we have, the change we can make, the people we can touch. That's why I got into the business. If you know me, you probably know I really don't like being on TV all that much, and I absolutely hate putting on makeup. But I think overall it was the mission of the field. And so although we do have to deliver bad news, maybe there's a terrible weather event or horrible things that happen, I always say I don't show up on a regular Tuesday. Most times if I'm talking to you, you're either on the summit or you're in the valley. But I always wanted to be the person someone felt like they could talk to. And so I think I stay positive because I feel like the good will always overwhelm the bad. I try to stay positive because I want to bring a light and be a light in this world. And I think that's so important, even in the midst of hard things. And so that's how I stay positive. And I think it's also, I found a balance personally. I think that takes some reflection, some growth. Early on, I would let it overwhelm me, and I would carry those things home with me. And I think it's important to be impacted and affected by what you do, but you can't live there. And so I think for me, it's just bringing that compassion and that empathy, and I feel it all, but then I'm gonna do my best to highlight the positive, showcase the helpers, and then I can rest in peace. And I can lay that down, and then I can keep going on to the next cause or the next story or the next event that we need to highlight. And so bad days are gonna come, but I feel like we can always choose to get up the next day, right, with a positive attitude and make this much more light in the world. And I think if we all do that, it makes a significant difference.
That's really beautifully put. I've always wondered that with doctors, teachers, and news reporters. How do you leave it at the office? How do you not take it home? Because you deal with heavy things, sad things, consuming things. I mean, what kind of empathy do you have every day at work?
I think you have to put it all on leave it all on the field, right? Sports analogy for you. You leave it all on the field. So if we are out talking to, people who have lost, and it's not always a traumatic event, right? So we've talked to a lot of business owners who have really been struggling because of the pandemic. And these are people who have worked their entire lives to build these businesses and leave something for their families. And I can rest assured that I'm going to do everything in my power to make changes. If we got to go hold government institutions accountable, hey, y'all need to get these PPP loans through, okay? There's a backlog, and here's who's responsible. That makes me feel good, right? Because I know that we have the power to significantly make change and impact our world for better. And so that's how I do it. I am all in. I'm going to feel it with you. I'm going to be there with you. We are going to walk with you through this. But then at the end of the day, for me, the thing that gives me that comfort is we've done everything in our power to help make the world a better place for the people in our community. And that's, I think, how I'm able to rest easy.
I like that. Hannah, you were talking earlier about moving career paths a couple times. I think that is more common than ever. I think COVID-19 has thrown a lot of young people, young professionals for a curveball. I feel so sorry for new college graduates, especially trying to apply for jobs that are not there, that are not hiring. What's your advice for jumping around and sticking to, well, this is what I'm good at, this is what I want to do, this is what I should do, but also trying to take advantage of opportunities? How do you navigate your career in that sense?
So I think that there's a stigma around failure that doesn't have to be there. And so often we look at failure as something really awful, and it doesn't have to be. Because sometimes your character is really tested whenever you fail and you don't do something, right? And so what better learning opportunity than to try something and to really give it your all and then realize, you know what, I don't think this is what I want. And then, right, you take it and you change it, and then you work really hard at something else. So I wish I could say like I grew up as like a little kid, like wanted to work in like marketing and advertising, and it's just not true, okay? So I tried a bunch of different things, and I got my teeth kicked in a few times, but I've powered through it, and now I've landed somewhere where kind of going back to the, idea of fulfillment. I feel like I am fulfilled in what I do now. So don't be afraid of failure, right? You just got to do it sometimes. The thing you think you want, to learn that it's not actually the thing that you want. And then, at the end of it, I learned a lot, about myself and about what I want from life and all these different things because I've experienced failure. So I think that's what I would say
That is
about
so
that.
good.
I think you can't put a price tag on fulfillment. And I think it ebbs and flows, kind of what we were talking about earlier with what then fulfills you. And at different points of your life, that looks different. We have another audience question. This is from Katie. For Robyn, you talk about coding being largely male-dominated with female esports athletes emerging. Can gaming help drive the bus for women in IT? That's an interesting question.
What was the question? Can what?
Can esports and gaming help drive the bus for women in the IT field?
That is an interesting question.
I don't even really get what esports is, to be honest.
No, it's a thing. It's a whole thing.
Yeah. I know. It's like people are famous esport athletes.
Yeah.
It's a whole industry.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to see how it will affect IT.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to know what the, percentage of male versus female getting into that esports industry is. And, I know that in IT, about 25% of the tech positions are owned by women. In my shop specifically, it's about 28% and about 50% of my leadership positions. So we're chipping away at it, with the focus of obviously hiring the right person for the job. But that's an interesting question, and I don't know, Dia, do you have experience in the esports space? I don't know if they're
Absolutely not.
Okay.
But we've reported on it. And at first I was like, esports? Get out of here. No, it's a whole thing. It's like a whole thing. Universities now have programs, and people are getting into it. I mean,
Universities have teams.
there we go.
And scholarships.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to know the percentages on that. That's a great question.
Okay, I have a question for Hannah. This is from Jackie. Marketing is the art of selling people on a product. How can women use marketing themselves to break through glass ceilings?
Oh man, it's all about how you present yourself, right? So if you're able to take your story, whether it's a failure or whatever, and kind of write it in a way that shows yourself in a light that maybe you don't even feel it internally, right? So sometimes I could easily look at my past and say, man, like there was a lot of things I was not good at, like I better just not do a whole lot. But instead, you look at it and you kind of write your own story and you say, I have all these experiences and I have a wealth of knowledge about a ton of different things because I've tried a ton of different things. And so then you just market yourself in a way that says, I have experience, I have knowledge, I have all these different things that make me, valuable to whatever field you want to be in. And it really is, that's kind of the art of marketing where you can write the narrative for anything, right? And so that's what you have to do essentially for yourself. And I don't want to say fake it till you make it, but there is a little bit of that, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. And so you get in there and you just do it. Yeah.
I've heard of this thing called Imposter Syndrome. I don't know if you all have heard about that. It's when you have success and you feel like at any point someone's going to catch you, like you didn't deserve to be there. And I think women feel it much more than men. It's that whole notion of when you ask for a raise or a promotion, women always ask for something a little bit more humble. Yeah. Men typically ask for something a little bit more ambitious. And just the whole point of your worth in your industry. And I think that takes a lot of maturity when you can say, no, I do deserve to be here. I have earned this. Dia, has there been a moment in your career that you've really felt that turning point?
No. Yes and no. I think that you have to seize the moment. I don't really plan my moves. I'm not that smart. Like I tell people, I I come to work, I do the best job I possibly can in the role that I'm in. And we work on contracts, essentially, in our business. And so a lot of times people will say, oh, well, what are you going to do next? And my attitude and my advice is always, I want to finish a contract with the same spirit and enthusiasm I had the day I signed it. So for me, it may look like I have this grand plan, y'all, but I really don't. I just come to work every day and I try to make life easier, better, brighter for somebody else. I try to advocate for people. That's one thing I will say. On my journey and like pushing, I think the one thing that I had uniquely as I've kind of moved up at the station, 9 times out of 10, if I was like acting a fool or really upset about something, it was advocating for people within my organization who I knew were getting the short end of the stick, right? And so I think taking myself outside of myself in a weird way is one of the things that made me one of the strongest candidates as I continue to evolve and grow through our organization. And so I will always say one of the greatest leadership things that I've ever learned that I keep as a practice to this day, if it's only about you, then it's not worth raising the issue. If it's only about you, then it's not worth raising the issue. Now, if we're talking about something that's impacting people within your organization, boom. But to me, this also goes to marketing yourself. Everybody loves to have a rock star on their team, but what people love more is somebody who inspires, encourages, and uplifts the people around them. And so for me, anytime that I was advocating for what I thought I wanted, needed, or deserved, it was, look, we need to approve this holiday OT. A turkey dinner on Thanksgiving is not showing people appreciation, right? I mean, I keep it real on all of those fronts. And so that's what I spend most of my time advocating for. And I found when it came time to renegotiate a contract or they wanted me to stay, I mean, they knew I wasn't going to take whatever they threw out. Make the ask, right? If you feel like, okay, look, I'm worth more, then ask for it. And never take the first offer.
That's good.
There's always
business
more.
advice.
That's excellent advice.
I want you all three to answer this separately. A word that you've dropped so many pearls of wisdom. I wish I had a notepad, but a word or phrase that you kind of find guides you professionally. Anyone can start.
My kind of word in general is intentional, and whether it's in my personal life, or professional life, if I make the effort to be really intentional in how I treat others and how I, speak about myself, or, the work that I put into something, like, that really drives kind of my whole life. I mean, so intentional, yeah.
That's a great one, and I think this goes hand in hand with that, and that's being authentic. So being true to yourself, being true to who you are, your morals, your values. If you're not, you're kind of pretending to be somebody that you're not. And I think it's just so important. And the president of our company, Tony Bolt, really believes in that authentic leadership, and he's encouraged that with all of us through the entire company. And I think it's a great guiding principle for everybody.
Oh boy, my word is serve. That guides me personally, spiritually, professionally. My life is not about me. And so serve is always my word. I think I wake up in the morning and I say, not literally, I'm not that good, but I always have the mindset of who am I serving today? What part of my community am I serving? Who am I uplifting? Who am I encouraging? And don't get me wrong, that has come at a cost at times. And now as I've gotten older, I have learned how to set proper boundaries and put things in proper context. But for me, it's serve, man. I always want the people around me to win. I always want the people around me to be better. I always want people around me to feel like they've got an advocate. And it could just be because I like busting down doors and, taking names. But serve, I think, is one that really guides me.
That's awesome. Does anyone in the audience have a question for any of our panelists? Well, if no one does, Dia, I want you to finish with one quick story, because my sisters just got here too, and I want them to hear the story you were telling me earlier of how you first met Patrick Mahomes. You got to tell that story.
Oh, Lord. Okay, so I worked in Tyler, Texas. Patrick Mahomes is from White House, which is a suburb in Tyler, Texas. Tyler, Texas is the big town in East Texas. And we would have tours of school kids that would come through. And so he actually came on a tour. That tells you how old I am. Sat in the little anchor chairs and took his proud picture. I mean, I think we shared it on air once when we did a pregame show, but that's how old I am. Patrick Mahomes was cruising through my station on a school visit.
I love
There we
that
go.
story.
Great
I
story.
knew they would too. And that's my little niece, Mimi, Mary Madeline, right there.
Oh, how
precious is she?
adorable.
She's beautiful.
For International Women's Day.
Oh my God.
Just had to give her a shout
I
out.
want to squeeze her.
I cannot thank you all enough for joining us in person, for everyone who joined virtually, and the money we raised for Empower at UMKC. Such a noble cause. Thank you again, Dr. Nielsen, who helped explain the cause of that and the mission. It's absolutely incredible. Want to let you all know as well that there is a brunch afterward, just downstairs at Blind Box Barbecue. It's on the patio. So we'd love you all to please join us there. Thank you again. This was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.